It be 5:30. Welcome. Well, hang on. We'll wait for Mr. Neal.
Yeah, you started early.
Not really.
The
5:03.
timer back there should show
5:30.
30-some seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
minute.
Let's do that again. Calling the meeting to order.
Short timer.
Appropriate notices have been given and the agenda needs to be, well, hang on. Let's start over.
Let's say it.
We're going to say the pledge.
Let's say the pledge.
Okay, let's stand for the pledge, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move to approve the agenda.
Oh. Approval and a second. Any discussion? An approval by Neal, second by Scott Booth. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. We will move into facilities work session with Ms. Dewey at the helm.
Okay, so I'm going to start tonight. First of all, I want to introduce Josh Siebert from Moda Studios. Also, Mr. Knight will be joining us in this discussion, and Ms. Russell. And we'll get started. The first thing I want to talk to y'all about is we batted around the ideas of a possible new building, and with that possibility comes...
Turn
with that possibility comes our facilities master plan has to be updated, etc. To do that, you have to do a POR. The POR is the program of requirements. So there's certain requirements. Of course, you have a certain number of science classrooms. You have to have a certain number of labs. You have a certain number of students. You got to have a certain number of square footage. There may be some ways to increase our efficiency for that POR. When I say that, there may be. We don't know for sure. We won't know for sure until there's official measurements taken of square footage, numbers are run, etc. One way that might increase the efficiency of our square footage is to take one of our buildings and possibly use it as non-academic space. We can do that by combining some grade levels. That does not mean that this would not happen, for many years down the road, because if you all remember the timeline that Eliza brought to us, there would not even be a new project if approved by voters if we needed the millage. It would not even be, we're looking at 2030 or 31 before any of this would even be a possibility as far as a restructure of our buildings. One of the things I'd like to propose to you all for Eliza and Chris to work on is looking at a restructure of our buildings. Having Nelson Wilkes be a K-1 building. We know that transitions are very tough for our kids. This eliminates one of those. It also makes sense as far as furniture, playground equipment, cafeteria tables. There were some great ideas, and we need to talk about all of them. But to me, that makes the most logical sense as far as not having to do remodeling, not having to move playground equipment. And that seems like, we'll just move the equipment. The thought is pretty mind-boggling, so we'd have to purchase and do some things. Hackler becomes a 2, 3, and 4 building. Once again, it's appropriate already as far as desk, tables, playground equipment, bathrooms. That's something you have to think about too. Pinkston, 5, 6, that is developmentally appropriate. And this is the one that we need to really have some discussion over. We need to have discussion over all of them. But 7, 8 at the junior high, 9, 12 at the high school. There has been discussion about 9, 12 being at the high school before. One of the things, if that decision is made, I did a little research. 33% of our kids at any time of the day, are not. 33% of our 9th graders are at the high school campus at different times during the day. First period being the highest. We have another and I don't remember if it's third or fourth block. We've got 88 kids or something, which is about a third, a little under a third of our ninth graders. So we've got a lot of kids down there already. With the new acceleration suggestions from the department, not even from the department, from the state legislature, it makes sense. We are going to be moving our kids faster than we have in the past. Students need the opportunity, a 7th grader needs the opportunity to take algebra if they're ready. An 8th grader needs the chance to have, well, our 9th graders need to have the chance to be AP classes, advanced math classes, honors English. Maybe they're ready for 2 Englishes their sophomore year, which is not traditional, or their freshman year. It's not traditional, but it is what's being proposed. If we're to move 9th graders, it needs to be very intentional as far as how we take care of their advising needs, how we take care of their advisory classes. It would be my view that you would have a 9th grade academy, and you would have a group of teachers that each year welcomes 9th graders. It doesn't change. The advisor, in my opinion, would not move up necessarily with the kids. You would have truly people who are educated and well-informed on the specific needs of those freshmen, because our teachers can tell you a freshman and a senior are very different. I mean, you've got people here who can speak to that. None of this that I'm presenting or proposing is for sure. It's an idea. Once we get measurements, and I say we, Mr. Knight and Eliza, will get measurements, they'll be able to see what our square footage per student is. Y'all can make the final decision. Our Guy Berry students could move to the kindergarten building. That building we'd have to move some furniture, possibly redo some bathrooms, as far as, honestly, the size of the toilets. I'm just going to be honest. Some things like that would need to be done. However, it makes sense as far as use of space and as far as being efficient with employees as well. And I'm talking about classified staff. We're not looking at nobody having a job or people losing their jobs, but through attrition, it could work, and you could save quite a bit of money. My first figures were over $100,000 in classified staff. This is an idea.
That's what work sessions are for.
So, what are you thinking?
Does that get us out of Guy Berry?
Oh, no, it doesn't.
Okay.
Thank you. I got a little lost. As far as Guy Berry goes, it would become non-academic space, and you could keep your offices that are there. And then my idea right now, just an idea, we are looking for a space for Bomb Squad to work and NJROTC to practice after school. They don't have space. You could use Guy Berry and the gym in Guy Berry and the cafeteria floor in Guy Berry, that large area, for those 2 groups. And those are stellar programs. I mean, we are super proud of those programs, and this would give them a space for after school. Like I said, just an idea.
Yep, I like it. Good idea.
The main thing is, when we think about 9th grade, it's making sure that we have the support that they need to be successful, whatever that looks like.
2 big things, so it keeps that flow going from junior high and high school, which is constant, and that is a safety risk. There's no other way you can state that. But also, I love the idea of the kindergarten and 1st grade being together. That jump, and any of us who have had kids that started in kindergarten and went to 1st grade here, kindergarten's so much fun. I mean, the leprechauns are fixing to come. You know, that's just a great, fun year. And then you come to 1st grade and you sit at real tables and you're doing really hard worksheets, and you've got a very big, it just makes sense that you don't have to go to a new building. You don't have to find new cafeteria. You don't have to find a new library, and you see some of the same familiar faces. I love that component almost as much as the night being in the high school component.
I'll be honest, that is probably as excited as I would be for the high school getting a new facility, as many, and Ms. Lawrence is here, and if y'all would like her to speak to the need for that, our transitions are very difficult, especially for our little guys and girls. It's
hard on parents,
tough.
too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they build trust with administrators, counselors. You know, they have some private situations that need support, and then they have to do that again a year later, build trust with a brand new staff, and we do it, but I think about the families that would already, like you're saying, the familiar faces, all that would already be in place for them.
I asked Ms. Kincaid, and I knew what she was going to say already because Ms. Lawrence said the same thing from the year before, but I asked Ms. Kincaid, our principal at Nelson Wilkes, I said, how long did it take? When school started this year, how long before first grade was in the groove? And she said 9 to 10 weeks. Now, those are your more difficult transitions. You know, generally kids are moving a little faster than that, but would you agree?
I would. And it just, I think it's just that consistency that they need at that age. I think we could provide that a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I did a little Googling on that also with, there's a buddy program that is really nice with kindergarten and first grade where you've got a big brother, big sister type. And it just makes the things so simpler for these little minds that are not ready. And parents, I think we've all been there. It's difficult and it's one less worry. I think that would be a nice move,
And
if possible.
this is just an idea. Until we get numbers, because the square footage per student, it would make sense in my mind that if you have less academic square feet per student, your funding amount, your possible funding amount from the department or from the state would go up.
Mhm.
But I could be wrong, and Chris has told me a couple times, and Josh, you may agree, you don't know till you run the numbers. You don't know till you run the numbers. And if it doesn't help us, I don't want to turn the apple cart upside down if it's not going to help. But it definitely is more efficient for staff. Your ninth grade, you know, we have to be intentional. Whatever the decision is with our ninth grade, has to be very intentional with a very structured support around those students, which they need anyway. You know, they need that anyway. I do not think moving the ninth grade creates the need for a lot more space. That's another thing. Talking with Ms. Russell, maybe 2 classrooms, maybe 2 to 4. Depends on what you do with some remodeling, maybe moving some of the things that are already underneath that big top area to areas that we could move to, programs and folks that we could move to other places. For example, technology, we can move them over to the maintenance area. So you have a very nice space there where the technology department is under the big top. That space can be remodeled, and those walls, that's already been remodeled once for those of you that remember the old band room that was there. They added walls, but those are not real walls, right, Chris?
Yeah, they're not structurally. I think Jason was there
Jason?
when we.
Yeah, there's no construction on there, it could be a wide open space.
So that would work for NJROTC. So you're not adding the space for NJROTC in a new build. You can eliminate that spot. Another thing, your counseling center, we could look at using the current front offices, doing a little remodel, doing a little update there, and put your counselors there, and then replace your main office in a new build. So those are some ideas that just saving a little space in a rebuild. Technology to maintenance, NJROTC to technology, counseling center, and career coaches. I think you can move your career coaches. They're just using one classroom right now, but that's one you can use for something else. We have a large book room that Ms. Shasheen's very familiar with that is actually a classroom. So we're going to need to figure out something there, but I think that could be considered a classroom space, and we can find some storage for her. Also, school-based mental health is using 2 classrooms. I say school-based mental health, Matt Sutton and Miss Hatman are using 2 classrooms near the gym. We can move them to the CBI house, which is out back. That is why I don't think you need as many classrooms if you move a grade level down. And then you do need a special education, and it would be my desire, and that's for you all to make the final decision on, to have a nice space for our special education students in a new build. These are just ideas, and we are looking at years from now. I just want people, if they're watching, listening, teachers who are here, this would be years down the road if this worked. So I guess I just would like, if you're okay, I'd like permission for Mr. Knight and Eliza to look at this plan, but I need the go-ahead.
I think exploring is a wise, it's the right move to explore it. I mean, this is the first, there's a lot of ideas there for me to even try to think through pros and cons, even the questions asked right now. I don't know.
Right.
You know, I have questions pop up, hey, moving the kindergarten, I like the idea of the buddy program. Is it also, but is it the kindergartners have a really easy drop off being a single school, a single grade? They're the big kids there now suddenly. I mean, what happens to the kindergartners when they're not the big kids, when there are other big kids and there's a lot more hustle and bustle? Like, I don't know the pros and cons. We can certainly delve into some of that. I've heard some pros and cons about the 9th grade, so talking about maybe even having them in one of the wings, right? One of those academy wings where it's not a true separate campus, but they've kind of got their separate space, perhaps. I mean, there's a lot to explore and
I think
dig
that,
into and piece apart.
I think what you said about 9th grade is essential. You cannot just throw your 9th graders down at the high school. You can't and expect them to be successful. It's providing the structure, making sure maybe it is of course it would be a freshman academy, but there's a wing.
Sure.
Maybe they have 9th grade lunch. With the DCTE changes, so that's your career and technical, the majority of your programs are moving down to where that first level course is 8th and 9th grade. So by 9th grade, a lot of those students are going to be moving into the second level of courses, so they're going to have to come to the high school anyway. Safety, moving them back and forth, I don't love it. We're making it work. They're also losing class time with the shuttling back and forth. And that's probably, and I don't want to speak for them, I got some high school teachers here, that's probably one of the biggest complaints I hear is we are missing 7 to 8 minutes sometimes.
Well, and
More.
disruption of class, coming in late.
Sometimes, yeah. So, and I know you have a class of 9th graders that come down too. And it disrupts class. Are they getting the work done? Absolutely. Our teachers are making it work, but because of the classes we're offering, it makes sense.
And we pay
To
those
me.
bus drivers, correct?
We do.
Or they're not staff?
No, we pay them. The number is not as high as you think it would be. It's anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000. We paid a little over without benefits. We paid $5,000 without benefits, but those were numbers from 2 years ago. And we've gone up $3.50 an hour. So
Could be close to 10,000.
So I was calculating that way. This plan's it is efficient. Is it the best plan? I don't know. But it definitely is efficient as far as use of space and providing space for those, what we call some of our premier programs. And JROTC needs somewhere to practice. They're trying to use the softball complex, the cafeteria. They're outside when they can be. Guy Berry would be a space they could do that. Bomb Squad does great at the bomb shelter over by maintenance, but wouldn't it be nice if they had their own heated, cooled, comfortable space? And we could do that at Guy Berry.
Well, if you look at the recoup of both of those projects, the kids that go into the military and the kids that have jobs already for engineering, I don't know how you could hide that. And also the fear of losing naval funding if we do not support the program with a place for them to practice has been brought to my attention several times.
And they're making it work. They're making it work. This idea, you would have one less main principal. I would recommend that principal become an assistant principal at the high school campus. I would think they would need at least 3 assistants with the number of students. You would have, a few less cafeteria, a few less less a daytime custodian. I'm thinking about Guy Berry. Your counselor number doesn't change. I mean, I've done, and like, this is just my first draft of thinking. It would take me sitting down with principals and teachers, making sure that we've covered all the bases.
But we have to have a stepping stone.
We gotta start, I feel like we need to start somewhere.
If we don't have a stone to start on, then none of this is gonna go in place. It's all gonna be, guessing, like Scott was saying. How are we gonna really know if we don't start speaking?
Are you all okay with Mr. Knight and Eliza looking at the POR for this organization?
Yes.
Yes?
You okay? And then questions. This is nothing for sure, right? We gotta look at, you all have to look at numbers. If it's not going to help us as far as, and Chris, I'm speaking correctly, right?
It could actually go the opposite way.
If it hurts us,
Mhm.
you
It hurts you.
don't wanna do that.
And I think, Josh, did Eliza tell me you guys, this is a Green Forest, that this ended up working against them?
Yeah, we've looked at that in other districts before and did the research portion and sit down and look at what, if we move this grade here, what does it do if we have too much square footage in that building, and that kind of acts against you and you get reduction of funding because it's based on need. So we've seen it go the other way too. And the first step, as you mentioned, is doing that research and understanding. Oftentimes, most things are dictated by that POR. It is a requirement by the division for minimum square footages for things like this. What I have seen happen in the K-12 market over the course of, let's say, 60 years, hypothetically, they weren't always built to requirements. And once the division became online and started mandating 850 square feet, that's the calibration of minimum square footage for a typical classroom. Kindergarten's 1,000 square feet. Sometimes structures were built at 600 square feet, and they didn't realize they were operating in less square footage. The opposite has happened, where schools were built and there's bigger square footage, and now they count that against you moving forward. So we've seen it hurt and help us in different ways. Getting that research is going to be crucial to how you guys calibrate, and that's what you're doing. You're trying to figure out that calibration of what works best for you. And so at Green Forest, as Chris was saying, we see it hurt us in another way. They wanted to move some grades around. Well, once you did that, you had too much square footage, and they wouldn't fund it because they're like, well, you have an overage. We've seen it where you move it here and they don't have enough, so it helps you, and the division can justify giving more money or partnering in that
That
capacity.
makes sense.
So.
So this would just be the first step.
I like the idea. I mean, you're approaching it from a student need instead of a facility need, and what's best for our students and academics. And then we're making the buildings accommodate the children at this point. So I like that approach. What is best for our kids? When we're looking at our kindergartners, and all of those transitions make sense. And I think academically, we set our children up for more success. And then we address the building needs as we need to.
The acceleration of your 9th graders really also drives. We're going to have more 9th graders in AP courses. We're going to have 10th graders with concurrent credits. We're going to have, it's happening. And we had a meeting today at ASU, Mountain Home, talking about acceleration. What does it look like for early college? It's happening. And we need to be ready. And I will tell you, I think having your 9th graders at the high school does help that. And we've got a lot of kids down there already. That doesn't mean that your 9th grade athletics would go away, or your specific junior high type. I'm trying to think about 9th grade athletics. That's probably the biggest one I would hear about. A lot of our 9th graders are in the high school band. That's why there's such a large percentage at the high school during the first block, I think.
There's so much more opportunity for them too. If back when my boys were in school, if we were allowed to do college courses, graduate high school with a 2-year diploma, you darn right I'd be at their heels making them get it done.
And we have parents that are very aware of what the opportunities need to be and are going to be soon. They had Rising, what's it called? Launching Your Future at the junior high, and they were stopped by a parent who said, okay, how are you going to guarantee me? How are you going to guarantee my kid an associate's degree? She's going to 9th grade. I've already read. I know what you have to do. I know what you need to help me do. I mean, and it was like, we're going to figure this out. And so we started today working on it because it's important.
It is.
And it is definitely a priority of our governor and the folks that are working in Little Rock right now.
I want to come back to you and agree with what Mr. Smesky just said about doing what's right for our students. I agree completely. I also think while we need to look at the POR and we need to plan for or hope to apply for funding and getting funding, there is no guarantee of funding. So we shouldn't let that dictate and drive us, that carrot dangling in front of us, that possible funding drive our plan. We need to make our plan what's right for this district and for this community, and hopefully that's still what's the right answer for the division to partner up with that funding. But just the idea of that funding shouldn't drive any big decisions. We need to do what's right for us as well, because that is not a guarantee at all.
And the education part of it instead of the facilities. I mean, we're in the education business, not
That's right.
buildings. So what I'm hearing from the board is that we're all on board to allow Chris and Eliza to move forward.
Yes.
Duly noted on record.
Regardless of how you look at the 9th grade thing, it's a disruption to their day. Where they walk down, where they ride the bus down, and they probably enjoyed walking down today.
Yeah, today was nice.
But when it's 10
Not
degrees,
this
they
morning.
probably really don't. I'm kind of curious as to what it's going to cost at Nelson Wilkes from a facility update in order to
I
accommodate
don't see much.
the kindergarten. I'm
I
sorry.
I don't think we have to do anything because they all have individual
Bathrooms are right.
Second
First
grade
grade.
has the hall bath, so you would, kindergarten would get
Get
the
the
classroom
first grade.
bathrooms.
So-
Playground equipment as
Kindergarten.
far as I know.
Kindergarten's
is
good. It'd be good with the
probably okay.
I mean, we'd like to at some point look at the playground equipment at Nelson Wilkes, but that's whether we move students there or not.
Some new playground equipment at kindergarten, but you're saying that couldn't.
We don't.
We did not add it.
We don't have new.
Oh.
But that equipment could move from the
It
kindergarten
could.
over if we.
I mean, I
I'll
don't.
tell you, we moved some and
Uh,
they're so concrete and like,
Not
not saying
destroyed,
we didn't
maybe.
try, but
Yeah.
some of it was more destroyed, not worth it. But like what I've been noticing is, like one of the hard things at kindergarten is, pre-K had some money to do some playground equipment, they wanted a slide. Well, they play in the kindergarten playground. Well, the pre-K requirements like are, 4 or 5 feet, and then the kindergarten requirements are more like, for the rules, are more like first and second grade. So I don't think that's a problem, but if it was pre-K moving to a kindergarten building,
Be
it would be.
Right.
It would be a lot.
The
So there won't be
tables.
room for the preschool to move as well.
We could. I have that down as an option, either to remain at kindergarten. We have lots of time to discuss. I mean, you could even do some type of different wall. There are fire doors there, but I don't know that those can be closed all the time. Between what would be Guy Berry and the pre-K, there's fire doors, but that may not jive, and that's okay. We also have F hallway at Nelson Wilkes. Now, Mr. Pendergrass, like you said, if we were to move pre-K to the F hallway at Nelson Wilkes, we would want to do a little work.
Yeah.
I would feel like it would be appropriate to do some updating and a little work. But once again, there's a couple of options there. We also have some outside folks using some of our spaces for pre-K, which we work with the OUR co-op out of Harrison. And I just went blank. Ozark Opportunities is the other one. So we have some ABC and some Head Start in our buildings. We have an ABC classroom right now over at Nelson Wilkes in the F hallway, which we did just a little touch up and it worked. So.
And so as far as, kindergarten has the reputation of being the greatest place on earth because it's the little guys, it's the fun.
I know.
It's great teachers. Mr. Roach has his own reputation
He
that
does.
everyone just loves. But you would still have that because it would be concentrated in
So you're-
one
that's
part of the
right.
building. That would not change.
No, it would
Well,
still,
just
and
the
their curriculum
location.
is aligned, K1
Yeah.
curriculum, they could do a lot of those activities could
There's
overlap.
some good gains there.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
they would- that would
Mhm.
work.
we have always felt that fewer transitions
Mhm.
would help, and I don't want to make excuses, but having a kindergarten teacher next to a first grade teacher, at least in the same building, knowing what's going on academically, it's big. And our kindergarten is fantastic.
It is fantastic.
They do a fantastic job. Our first grade, our teachers, this doesn't have anything to do with the work they're doing. And one more time, I want to reiterate, this is not next year. This is not
Mhm.
at the earliest, if all this worked out perfectly with the POR, 5 to 7 years. And I'd say closer to 7.
A lot of those kindergartners haven't been born yet.
They have not been. Well, I guess if they
They're-
were
they're-
waiting,
we're
you're
right
right,
there.
they could, but I mean, we would not even start, 5 to 7.
Right.
Maybe closer to 5. I mean, I'd love to tell you.
The point is, it's down the road.
It's down the road, and that's very important for me
But if we
to make
don't
sure our
start
folks know.
now,
We
it's
have
gonna
to
be
start.
further
Yes, ma'am.
down the road.
Right.
It's just, we gotta start.
Okay, so we're good with
Yes,
Chris and
we-
Eliza moving
we have
on. He'll get with her and
blessed it.
they'll get their magic laser measurers out.
The
Okay.
Magic laser beam.
Measuring what?
Everything.
The kindergarten
What they
space or
typically
the?
do
Everything.
is they'll go classroom to classroom.
At the kindergarten building we're talking about,
I
right?
think so,
Okay.
yeah, pretty much all of the different buildings.
I think we'll have to do
And they'll
that.
check that.
So
He
we're
has
gonna
to
look at
do
the whole the whole district's
Yes, sir.
space wise. Okay.
Everything.
Okay. You're real familiar with the Big Top and the high school, but we gotta
Some
measure
of
out
those
everything else
campuses,
too.
I'm not as familiar, but
Sure.
I will be working with Eliza to understand where some of those, overages are, what actual square footages are versus what state requirements are, and then she will take that data and kind of report back in a narrative form to tell you what she's.
And what kind of timeline would it take to do this?
I don't know what she's.
Okay.
Well, we have to have something ready to go in October.
I'm hoping that we can start on it.
Tomorrow?
Break.
Okay.
It
I
makes
said
a lot of
tomorrow.
sense.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Pretty much tomorrow. Just because, then I don't have dinner at classes.
It's true.
Can this go concurrently with planning on replacing Big Top square footage?
sir.
Or does that need to happen before
No.
we start looking at
You
replacing?
can, everything's
So
rolling, but
concurrently, it's gonna go on concurrently. So potentially reorganizing the district can also can go along
yes,
with
sir.
new floor plans. Okay.
You just may say, don't reorganize, we're gonna, we don't like that idea anymore, and we can nix that and go back to another, but that doesn't change your building.
Making the district more efficient, if we can free up a building, right, and save money, that seems like a win-win, without impeding our students and the learning capabilities.
I think you've got some students that are gonna get some cool spaces if they're able to use Guy Berry.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And of course, moving Guy Berry is a process, there's a lot of Guy Berry.
That's probably,
I mean-
that's a process.
We'd have to look at.
You move your
leave-
cafeteria to.
Leave Guy Berry, now the kindergarten space.
You're gonna
move-
have to do something.
Move some ROTC space over there, those are things.
Oh, that's true.
Right.
didn't
They
think
have a
about that.
smaller gym,
Think
right,
about
but,
that.
I'm not saying that's what you wanna do, it's a smaller gym, but,
Still a gym.
those decisions are down the road, but making it more efficient, I'd say, yeah, let's look at that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the second thing is, we have, I think, Modus Studios. Mr. Josh is gonna do some discussion with us, and then we really need to sit down, or we really need to talk about needs versus wants, as he begins some schematic planning. So,
Well,
it's
thank
all
you for having me back. It's good to see everybody. Ms. Ward, nice to meet you. I haven't had a chance to meet you yet. One, we're just honored to be back at the table to talk through this. When we sit down and start to understand what is the needs, what are the wants, obviously being familiar with the campus has helped. So again, I'm just gonna show some imagery. And it's right behind you, so I apologize, Jason and Scott, that you might have to turn around for a minute. Obviously, this is taken a little bit back. You'll recognize on the left part of the screen, that was under construction on that beautiful day. Some of my other trips have been rainy. But this is roughly what the campus currently looks like, of course, from the air. Another view is here, just looking kind of at the back, and I use these mainly for reference tonight to kind of talk about it. Moving forward, we always want to be cognizant of what our past was. This is not every milestone in the district's advancement. These are some that we just pulled out that we kind of recognize, the 1966 of the 4 to 5 buildings that was the original buildings underneath the big top. If you fast forward, you start to see the vocational and tech agri building, fine arts and field house were added roughly 1980, 89 to 91. The big top and cafeteria was added with a little bit of the fine arts addition. Performance gym and auditorium added roughly 1991. Then the expansion to the cafeteria and math wing in 1997. Lastly, but not least, is the library and media center to the science building. So I bring this up because what we do when we start to master plan and design a next phase is we just try to acknowledge what we have so that we know what our roadmap is and how we might want to go forward. So I show these as just exhibits of kind of how we got to where we are, what we've inherited over time. This is an aerial view more recently of the campus, of course. And so tonight, my intent is to, at best, try to throw options out there as a working session. What I love about when we start this, and we did this a few years ago, you start like anything's on the table at this moment. We're open to where do we want to go, what do we want to do. Just as in the previous conversation, you're trying to ask ourselves, what do we want to put in it? And so originally what I did is I just kind of made 2 diagrams. A diagram that there's options, and I know we spent some time previously looking at the option of full demo and renovation in phases, but as we've mentioned more recently, there are options within this to what happens if we put a building out front of what would be the circle drive. Another option is if we use the space that we have. Now, we have talked about what I have labeled here as 2 before, but it puts a new high school kind of in the back of the existing high school. And so there has been reasons why that did not make a lot of sense to put it back there, why it would displace fill the plays that are larger, why that might not make some sense. What you're also seeing in the kind of teal color is just that we acknowledge that if you put a building in front, you're going to displace parking. And we know parking does have value. You have students that use it, admin that use it, ball games that need it, that's crucial. So we do acknowledge that if you displace that, then we will have to probably come back, find ways of putting parking somewhere else. These are just random places that might earmark where they will go. I would also say that in time, if I know we keep calling it the circus tent, but if the circus tent goes away, that opens up a place for parking or other facilities at some point as well. So I did not highlight that because that's not really our focus just yet, but our thought is that there's options within this option 1. And I'm just going to show you that I know previously the plane and the circle drive was a little bit more sacred of a space, and that's why we did not pursue that. I do acknowledge that if we were to put a building here, there's some options. Do we move the plane? Do we do something differently? It is a key component to the campus, and we don't want to quite just say, oh, well, the plane goes away. We know that the bomber is important. And option B might be that building slides more forward of campus. And what does that do when we do that? Obviously, we find ourselves closely connecting to the Performing Arts Center to the front of the gymnasium. So when you do an option like this, it has the tendency to displace more parking, potentially. It has the opportunity to create a larger courtyard, and maybe the plane stays as a part of that courtyard. So we kind of understand that could be an option that we would want to pursue. What I have in the magenta color is basically an idea that this is the rough square footage of what we have currently in the circus tent, but stacked 2 levels. And the reason I say that is that's going to be one of the key foundations of what a new building will be, is we have to solve the cafeteria because it has loading and unloading needs. And the cafeteria is one of those things that nobody wants to look at the loading section of a cafeteria, but we need to be conscious of the fact that that is something that we're thinking of. And then lastly, I had also put an option, because we're brainstorming an option that might load a building along that parking only. And maybe it doesn't take up the drive in that front spot. Maybe we might decide tonight that, hey, it's more important that we still have that front of the gym access. Maybe we still want to leave the plane as it is. So I always want to just throw options out there that could be a stacked high school building as well. And the reason I felt like option one is the most feasible, I think it's been the most current discussion. Option one being a building in the front of campus or in the front of the existing high school. So one of the things that we, in a working session, that I like to do is just try to understand what we have. The option that you're seeing here with the arrow pointing to the large blue is basically what we currently have under the big top, and it's right at 84,000 square foot of facility. Right now, this could be within, based on labeling and how you're currently using it, we currently have 24 classrooms, roughly 3 labs, 3 sets of restrooms, 2 locker rooms, what we've called an old gym, a space for ROTC, we have a counseling office, the kitchen and cafeteria, and student commons. And so that's currently what we're hypothetically going to be replacing in time, is that program square footage. We know that that's kind of what we're trying to build in this new idea, or where we're going to head for our schematic. We know that the performance gym and locker rooms is a building that is largely untouched. It was built at a later phase. It has a separation of a wall, so we have a firewall between the new and the old. So we're going to be leaving that alone and not really touching it. I just want to give confidence that when the circus tent was to be replaced, that building would stay alone. We might have to look at, skinning what happens in this wall, that if this goes away, what happens to that facade. I know that if you go up in the top of the circus tent, you look back, you can see the old facade. So we know that that might go away, and what does that surface look like? But for the most part, we're not really changing any of that program. It works well. We know we want to leave it alone. So we're not really touching that. We know that some of the other buildings that are affected, the library, we're going to leave untouched as well. So that's an area that was built later into the progression of your campus. In this model, the library would not be touched. And as Ms. Dewey said earlier, there is some creative ways about how we deal with what is, I think, called the fine arts or admin right now. By putting a building out in front of the new campus, it is tradition that you would put administration close to the front door. That's just a basic understanding of where's the principal's office, where's the counseling going to go. And because that is currently in this building, that would move to the new building. But it means that we would repurpose this building in much of the suggestions that were made earlier, that we have programs under the circus tent currently that might find themselves in here in a light renovation versus having to build all new square footage. And we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to build more than we need. We just need to build what we need because it's the best fit for the students. So I just bring up that this potential renovation, which is currently 6 classrooms, 3 labs, front office, lounge, and restrooms, could get repurposed based on what we were discussing earlier. And then, as I said, we know that there's a potential in the future, if we need to be planning for the 9th grade, what does that really look like? We know that, if you're going to build, we need to make sure we've got that square footage accounted for on the campus in some ways. And so there is kind of a large question mark in the magenta box of how big are we going to need to build? We know that the cafeteria has opportunities that need to be brought up to code. When I say that, that means when you put this amount of students there, that cafeteria is probably largely a little bit bigger than what your current cafeteria is. We know that some of the classrooms currently under the circus tent are not that baseline square footage. They're not 850 square foot. They're give or take 50 here, 100 here. So we will be held accountable to the POR requirements of building, when we build new, to those new requirements. Sometimes it's going to be bigger than what we expect. But they're basically if I remember, some of the classrooms when we measured them were like 680 or 720 square foot. We know we have to do 850 as our base minimum. So that will help throttle what the new building can be. And so one of the things that I brought back, and really the only thing I've really brought back from our previous efforts, was just this idea when we polled the teachers and the students the first time around. These were things that kind of surfaced, and I bring these terms back because this is what people wanted at the time. The teachers were wanting, the students were asking for, and I bring that back because it's some of the things that are not, you can't really compute them in square footage. It's in the features of the building, like natural light, or outdoor connections, or outdoor seating, common areas, centralized special education. I bring these up because as we start to develop a schematic design, we're going to try to keep this into our forefront. I don't know what the building looks like. We're not really talking tonight about architecture from a standpoint of what is it brick, is it glass, is it pitched roof, is it flat roof? We're really just trying to ask ourselves, where's first the location we want to pursue the most? In the schematic design that we submit for this application, I will say you always have freedom to move it. It doesn't mean that we make a decision tonight and we have to stick with it long term. But we do want to get our POR or our ask correct. What are we putting in it? Because it's harder to move that around. You can move the building, oddly enough, but you can't add to and take away square footage because they tie everything to those square footage calculations. And so tonight, what I really wanted to do is just kind of give you an idea of the fact that we're starting to think about that. And we're trying to ask ourselves what is in the building. Where is the building and what could be in the building? I know in time, this will be something that we will want to take, obviously, Ms. Dewey, to staff and ask questions like, okay, is that the best fit for you right here? Where does that need to go? What's your adjacency? That's what our goal is over the next several months, is to develop that with you. There'll be a few more working sessions, of course, where I come back and start to show you a layout that starts to be like, this data has been pulled. Here's what we think's in the building. Here's where we think the adjacency might be. The cafeteria might want to go over here. But I am very conscious of the fact that we kind of have no back door to the campus at this location. And I think we're going to have to be creative with that, specifically thinking about loading and unloading for a cafeteria. Where does the milk truck go? What does that look like? How do we deal with student parking next to traffic flow? And so those are some of the factors that will weigh into our locations. And what does the building start to do as far as that goes? I think architecture is pretty far off. I would say that that's really not so much what does it look like yet. It's really more about, do we have it right based on the needs? What is our long-term plan and where do we want to head? I don't want to belabor parking. I just know it is a factor. I would say that we know student parking in this location and athletic parking in this location is a factor that we'll be thinking of. We'll be thinking about how the performing arts wants to perform when we displace parking. Where's people walking from? Where do they kind of go to? And so I've just labeled these things just areas to start to consider and start to think about. And I don't need to always be the one talking, but I want just to kind of get your overall feel and taste of what you're seeing as far as location goes, if we're even thinking in the right spot. So I'll open it up for questions or thoughts or things that I may not know. I mean, there might be overall thoughts of, hey, have you ever thought about here, or would it go here? I do think that what you're talking about in the amount of square footage, it's fair to say that it is a new building in front, and it has a presence of creating what does the new front of the high school look like. It's a substantial size of building, and that's why I bring that up. I think it warrants, it's not just another little building. It could be the new face of what Mountain Home Schools could look like.
So you're saying one is your preferred plan?
I think so. Based on the recent conversation, one feels right in the sense that you're putting enough square footage that you would operate in a new two-story building in front of campus. Two always feels a little odd because it would be putting a lot of building in the back of campus. But you could easily say, hey, ninth grade, we can't move, and that's closer to ninth grade, and that might have some value. There could be some pros and cons there. But there's enough square footage that it might make sense that two is not the best option because it displaces athletic fields, and we might not be able to make up for that.
Would you put the front office in one?
I think you would. I think you.
Yeah, because I mean, you're kind of hiding
want
it.
them to be the handshake to the public. where does somebody come in and, you know, meet, or, you know, if you're picking up a student, you have to check in. So I do think admin kind of wants to come with that. You wouldn't want to go through a building to get to it.
Right, that's what
Yeah.
threw me.
If you turn it on its head, option one, have you thought about perhaps that being the back of the building? Right, that's the back of the school, where the big top is, becomes where the bomber's at. There's a circle right there.
That's right.
The admin spaces, while where the current, you know, front office is in the back of that building, that you could rearrange that building a little bit. But maybe that's where students come in, you park, you're parking where the big top is, you walk right to the gym, you walk past the gym to get to the football field. I mean, we could turn this thing where the back of the high school is actually the front, where ultimately we wind up putting it on, or where the big top's at. There's parking there, you're coming right in the front, and where Bomber Boulevard is, that's the back where we're doing our cafeteria loading and unloading with
That's
trucks or whatever.
There has been one other option that I was a little reluctant to share yet, because it requires a little bit trickier phasing. And there is an option that, yes, you could consider building on each side, leaving the road open, and planning for the future, just exactly what you're saying, Mr. Booth, that you're gonna eventually potentially open this up. And if this building goes away long-term, you know, what does it mean to go through campus? Now, we might say that's a pro and con that you don't want to do. You wouldn't want students or people driving through campus, but you could consider the fact that, you know, those things can happen, and your front and back are blurred a little bit.
I wasn't talking about going through campus, coming in from the north, right?
Mhm.
We've got a road there.
Yep.
Maybe expanded a little bit where the parking lot is here. Yep, that's the entrance into campus. And that's a solid building,
Yeah.
right? Where you don't have a fence to jump over, or there's not access for outside folks to, you know, that's one of the considerations, is making the campus safe and limiting access to campus for folks who shouldn't be there. So that's a solid building with limited access,
Yeah.
right? No, I don't know, I'm just saying
Yeah, I like it.
But wouldn't that leave Dunbar kind of hanging? You'd have, I kind of understand what you're saying, but that leaves Dunbar.
What if,
Yeah,
what if the news,
It's hard to see.
Basically sitting here, entry, you know, parking, entry. Yeah, it's a longer walk to Dunbar. Maybe for events, hey, there's obviously this parking's still here. You could probably still get into Dunbar for.
I mean, can you move the
performances.
entrance of Dunbar? I mean, that to me, you'd have to move your entrance.
It's a good point. Right now, our current entry to Dunbar is on this corner, and you would have to relook at what does that entry piece look like if that was the case, for sure.
Because I don't think when you have performances at night, you want to walk through the whole high school campus.
Okay.
I just,
what if the option one was tucked in closer to the existing structures,
Yeah.
and then the big top removed? You'd create your back door for your deliveries, like if the cafeteria was kind of in that corner, you'd create your back door. You'd also create a whole lot of parking.
It's
then-
showing up as much as I'd like.
And you still retain your Dunbar entrance if you tuck it in enough. Is that
If you
kind of where
tuck
you're
it in,
getting
yeah,
at?
if you tuck it, I don't like the idea of the main entrance being in that corner. It's a horrible corner, and we've already got 3 lanes up across the front. It's easier to get cars in and out across the front.
How far can you
But,
tuck that in? How far?
Well, you can kind of see how this form, whether we call it rectangle or not, it's a fairly large form at 2 stories. And that's basically making the assumption that we're building roughly what we're replacing, which is around 85,000 square foot. So I think our goal for me was to keep costs down and not to try to go 3 levels, always to kind of see our best opportunity to stay within the scale of the campus at 2 levels. And that's kind of the size. So if we start to move that around, I don't, you know, how that works or what does that look like. Let's say we kind of tuck it like this. Then trying to figure out, you know, what's our accessibility to the court. To your point, you could always relook at, okay, well, maybe, you know, when we do that, then the gymnasium has a different kind of front of house, and this is tucked up to a new high school building. and you still get Dunbar able to access it the way you're talking about there. So I think that's a great suggestion. I think it's worth exploring that kind of location and what does that mean. So,
And so your cafeteria would be at the rear.
yeah, I think so. I think you would really have to consider where that cafeteria is. The size of that cafeteria, let me try to change my size of this.
So are you thinking moving the jet, the
I
bomber?
do, yeah, in this scenario.
Yeah, I
I think
mean,
you're gonna have to move
Yeah.
that to make this work.
where are we thinking?
Well, maybe in the front
Well,
of the
I
building.
mean, you've got,
The rear of Dunbar?
or.
That little pie?
You know, see where his orange arrow is at?
Mm-hmm.
Over in the field over there, you could put it. You could put it in front of the grandstands. You could put it in the grass between the,
Yeah, the fence
the-
entrance.
the vendors. I mean, there's,
Would you have to have a new gym entrance with,
We will definitely need to make sure our egress strategy stays the same. And so how we do that, I think you want to create separation.
yes?
I don't think you really want to go through the high school to get to the gym.
No.
So I would really want to study how that egress is starting to work. You know, if we were thinking that this option starts to work, where you come in on this side, I would want to look at my secondary exits, things like that.
And my point was, it's not even to create a second exit on the gym, is if you're parking where, say, the big top is, if the plane's here, you've got your circle, you know, this is the entrance into the gym.
Yeah, there you go.
Just kind of off the circle, we have the entrance, off the circle, you walk into the gym, or you walk into the front office of the high school, and then the rest of the campus.
That's
I
good.
think there's ways of arranging that where you're not having to rearrange an entrance to Dunbar or an entrance into the gym. You can still use the existing entrance. Hey, you're just walking from the west and then turn into the north end of the gym.
But you couldn't have your cafeteria back there then, right?
so now the back side would, or the front side would be the back side, is
Correct.
where the semi trucks or milk trucks or whatever you want to call it.
Which is still,
We
that's the
have a
back.
mindset of that being the front of the high school, but it doesn't have to be, right? That could be the back of the school. And the front, kind of where his orange arrow is, if that's where traffic's coming in, the circle's there. You've got parking up to the north side of campus. I mean, flip the whole thing if it makes more sense.
Yeah, there's already a dock at the back of Dunbar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nothing off of Bomber Boulevard there to say that needs to be the front of our
No.
school for aesthetic reasons or whatever.
That's a
No.
good point.
And off the front, when you've got ball fields, across the creek, but,
Is that, I guess, I don't wanna, that footprint of where the big top is, I guess, is the way to say that. Is that going to provide enough parking?
That's a really good point. I think based on where we're starting to look at, I think what I would want to do is start to pull how much parking we're displacing, then consider, to your point, Scott, like what does that really yield? Do we get a full replacement, or is there a creative way to do that where, you know, maybe some of it's here, some of it's an entry sequence, maybe we need some parking over here, but make sure we don't lose calc as far as what we need, because I do acknowledge that between the gym and the football, you're gonna need that parking on a day-to-day level, but you're gonna need it on game days. You can't afford to go backwards.
Yeah, we need more than we have on
Yeah.
football games.
well, the more you tuck the building into the west,
That's
where the
right.
Bomber is gonna keep the more existing parking, or is gonna keep more of the existing parking there
Good.
for events. You do have the west side, hey, where number 2 is, or that magenta parking up there,
Mhm.
they always can be expanded if need be.
Well, and I know we've got currently some along the street. Doesn't mean that you couldn't keep going in some of that. You can get really creative with street side parking that picks up a few here and there. So and that's why I kind of put these in here, is that, okay, what happens if you have a little bit of visitor parking or bus parking over here for visitors? You know, little things like that I think could easily happen, so. But I do like that option that, considering what does this footprint yield and what does it mean to be in that space, it helps our separation, so Dunbar, we're not having to connect. It helps being able to think about kind of going into the gym. It still provides a building that you can see the size of it. Now, to your point, that might mean that this is the admin corner, if that's the new entrance eventually. You know, where does admin want to be? If we kept it on this side, you know, what does admin look like on this side? So what I would do is, if you like one, then we'll start to come up with a few options with one, bring it back with some actual layouts that would say, okay, if we did this, this is what it could be. If we did that, this is what it could be. After about 2 or 3 of these sessions, I think we'll have an option that everybody's like, hey, I like that. Let's go ahead and submit that. That's calibrated based on our square footage needs. We think that location is universally the best flow. There will be part of that as well as just us doing a little bit of a traffic study. I think that's a good one that triggers the idea of like how many people are coming from the north on a day-to-day basis. How many people are used to driving this?
Mhm.
You know, is that a concern of ours? Because again, thinking about how they want to kind of go, I would really like to understand where, you know, that works into play. So,
I think now might be a really good time to break, to grab some food, put your thinking caps on. I'm not going to adjourn or go into executive session or anything like that. So we're going to still stay live, if that's, and please come get some food, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes and continue our facilities work session and keep asking questions, but I know everybody's probably a little hangry. So we'll go get some food and continue. And then we'll have some input from our teachers and see if you got anything you want to add and help us.
Could we bring Eddie up here at some point?
Yep, and then we'll get Eddie.
I had a few ideas.
Good,
Good.
okay, hold those
I-
thoughts.
You're talking about traffic flow.
Hold
and
those thoughts.
All that, so.
Better. Good idea, Jason.
I like it.
That right there is
Are
part of
those
it.
roads?
The traffic study will work, I mean,
But I'm even thinking, coming through that road, you got,
I want to stop
there's a
there.
lot into
I hate to
Everything.
interrupt that great
Yes.
flow, but I'd love to hear what you're talking about, and I know everybody
So,
else would
like,
too.
1 minute maybe?
So 1 minute we'll gather together and, I know you had a good conversation going there
No,
too.
we'll repeat it.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, that's what, I love seeing you guys are up there talking and looking.
And teachers,
And
teachers, I don't want to call you
guests,
teachers,
everybody.
guests, come and eat. There's plenty. There's like, sit like we're in a theater watching.
I think that's what's nice about workshops, and when you start to master plan, this is the dream session.
Very
This is where
casual.
everybody's like, what have you thought of, or what have you dreamt about, or hey, if campus could have changed, and what does that flow look like? And I
Right.
thought you brought up a really good point about, if Dunbar's entrance was different, and you only plugged in for a theater or performing arts moment, what does that look like? What does it feel like to be on campus? If we did think about what's the front face of campus, what does it feel like for future growth? That's what Scott was bringing up is, this might be our plan here for the next 5 to 10, but what happens in 50 years? Are we really growing to the west? Is that our goal, is to grow to the west? Is our goal to stay compact? So those are some of the conversations that we were having is just, what does 50 years look like? If you could, sit back and say, all right, maybe we get to start to lay that foundation of what the future is. How do we set up the next people for success in that regard?
And I was going to bring that back up. Anything that we were talking about, I wasn't trying to have offline. If anything, starting off, hey, here's the progression of what this high school's changed. If anything's shown, as time goes on, we've needed to make changes and additions as we've grown. So yeah, you have to think 50 years in the future. What's going to happen in 40 years, 50 years? What if 412 gets 4-laned across the state and we grow and new industry comes in and we need to add on to the high school? If the front office is basically where the Bomber's at right now, and you expand to the west, where else would you expand? The only spot is to the west. If you had to put an addition on, well, you're getting further away from the front office and the campus is growing. Whereas if maybe you oriented it where the north side is the entryway and you expand to the west, front office is still very centrally located if you had to build off to the west. Yeah, that's what it went away here. But if the front office is here and we wind up having to expand out to here, you're getting a long way away from the front office. Whereas if this still stays the front office and we wind up building out over here, the campus is still, front office is still centrally located. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I'm just thinking, hey, down the road, where would you expand in the future? Because there will be future expansions.
I think Mr. Helmert had
Yeah,
something.
so I wanted to, talking about traffic flow, working for the city for many years, been a police officer, we get complaints and where parents of kids go to the city to complain about traffic, is Butcher and West Road is that 4-way stop. And I'm thinking if that's the main entrance coming to the high school, and also you have the main entrance going into Hackler, it already gets backed up to the 4-way stop. And I'm just, that would cause such a, unless something happens, that would cause such a headache for traffic. Being that coming down Butcher as our main entrance. And I'm just throwing that out there.
So it's,
Yeah, you might help, or is this Butcher here? Is this?
yes, sir. So they
Yes.
back up, there's a 4-way stop,
Yep,
and they back up, past the Methodist Church.
yep, up to that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so,
Going
and
across.
you can ask, I've met with the mayor
It's been a,
to try to, what can we do? Can we expand? But that's a state highway. That's not a city highway.
Right.
So I've looked at putting, can we widen it? Can we do something? But we can't. As a city, we can't do that.
You've also, if I can add to that, driving in, you've also got to think when visiting schools, when you have they come off 62, that's the main entrance into town. There's already a complaint, how do you find the high school? If you totally flip it,
And I'm just throwing it out
that's
there.
that's a
As
deal.
far as your traffic flow, and also when you look at any type of facility, you know, how the high school is now, we have, where are buses, kids being dropped off on the bus? And where are kids coming in? Because if for the future, you really want a single point entry. You don't want several points of entry for our kids to come in the building.
Yeah.
As a safety, you know, I'm sure when
Yeah.
new schools are being built, that's what they look at.
I think that was one of the comments that were brought up, is that sometimes security is gonna be a bigger issue in how we grow our campus. How far do we want our students to walk? What do we want? How often do we want the public interacting? Do they stay at one side? And so I think that's a good point. Specifically, we were talking around, you know, what does this site offer? You know, does it offer a more centralized, long-term approach, and security is not that big a deal? What if this street was no longer used as much, and you do have that flow to some of these other spaces? Is that a pro? Is that a con?
Right, and how, you know, right now, our high school campus is open to the public. Anyone off the street can drive around our campus.
That's right. You can do that without even questioning it.
Right.
What if you updated, this goes to using spot 2,
Mhm.
you did an update of your main offices because we, you know, kind of gave it a facelift, and you did your new build behind the building.
That's a good point.
I don't know.
So there was just a few things that I recall in our previous vetting out of 2.
Okay.
There is some topography change.
Is it rock back there? Was that an issue?
There's some rock. It's relatively flat as it is. That doesn't mean rock is fully negative. It just
I think
depending
was
on how
that
it-
the, I think Jason had some experience with some rock back there.
We put fiber back there years and years ago.
Forgot.
And they had to grind for about 3 weeks because it's not a little rock, it is a very, very
Shelf.
large shelf.
Yeah.
So it'd be a good foundation for something.
Yeah.
It wouldn't go anywhere.
Okay.
Okay, can I ask a question about the big top? I wish I could see it with the big top gone, because we know the big top's gone.
Right.
All right, so the big top goes. Could you okay, so you've got the new building in the shape of a V right there, right?
Mhm.
So the big top goes down, and basically what you'll have left is the library and that little section where the fine arts are, right? Well, okay, I'm gonna have to, because I'm,
That's
so
right.
that I know what I'm saying. Okay. It is kind of an inversion. So this is all staying, that's going, right? So can we not put the new building where it comes totally across and somehow connect? You almost still have the same shape, but we're building around the library and you connect the library in there, but the new face, it's still a new face up here.
Mhm.
We're just coming across.
So let's
Watch that corner.
listen. If I understand you correctly, you're saying that it's basically becomes maybe this?
Yes.
You leave the library. So this is similar to our previous approach in just that we found that the square footage needed to accommodate what's under this
Right.
It's not enough
makes it
space.
go 3 stories very
But can you
easily.
still not stretch out
This way?
toward the big, where the big top is?
Well, only because of
No.
the logistics of we gotta build new, put students in them, and then demo.
We have to
It's
stay at the
really
big
a
top
phasing
while we build.
challenge.
If you tear it down first, you have to know where to put your kids and feed them.
Specifically cafeteria and gym.
It's
We
really
could-
about that
Actually,
cafeteria.
more about the cafeteria, because we could have school.
So this is all because you have to go A, B, C. We can't
Yeah.
go A to C.
That's right. The phasing makes it the most challenging. I've seen districts, or Springville, or excuse me, or Rogers District, they renovated a substantial elementary school. And they brought in portables for a full year while they're renovating. And there's cost to that, there's major
bucks.
challenges to that. It's not like, it's not the worst thing, you just have to be willing to go down that road. And there's concerns, that those things happen. But
Sure.
I've seen more complex things have to happen to get it right. So
I mean-
it's not without asking. I think that's a good question.
If we had to do that, okay, I suspect we can find a solution without using temporary buildings.
Food trucks.
Did the other plan, can I ask a question?
Yes, please. You guys are
Did
here
the
to
other
help.
plan, it left the bomber where it was though, correct?
It did.
So can you not pull, like what Ms. Morgan is saying, but pull it out to where, about like moving the bomber plane? Like it fills in that whole circle
Yeah,
and
that's-
that, you're not losing any parking, but like in the bomber plane area, and it doesn't have to go 3 stories, it can still have the footage of 2 stories and not go in front of Dunbar.
Yeah, if I kind of sketch, and I apologize, from your viewpoint, you might not be able to see this peak as much. But
How could
you're
we
not
get that
wrong in
done?
that there could be some partial move that a building of this size could kind of happen, like what you're suggesting.
Like we're pushing it back, but then taking out some of that area where it butts up to the library if needed to be.
Correct. I think our big key is trying to throttle up how much renovation we do, what is needed, is it a light touch renovation, is it a full, what does that mean? But you're not wrong, in that space could be developed. You could move the plane and start to
I mean,
move that.
the bomber can be right here too.
That's right.
I mean, that circle can come in,
Yep.
I mean, the circle doesn't have to.
There's
The
nothing
bomber
sacred
will,
there.
the plane will find its place.
Oh, that's fine, yeah.
It'll find itself.
That's true.
It
If
will.
not, if the Navy doesn't want us to move it, they'll
No.
take it back.
No.
It'll be okay.
Not an option either.
It'll be okay.
No, we'll have to have the bomber, but it could even be at the corner of Bomber Boulevard and
They might help
62.
move us. You never
Mhm.
know. They might
Well-
help move it. We might call them, they call, I
Oh,
didn't,
people to move the plane, actually
they
move
come.
the plane.
They'll have to, they'll do it.
The
It'll
National
be
Naval
fine.
Museum in Pensacola owns that plane, right, so.
So
probably
they
want a
kind of, it's
road
a
trip.
museum piece, is that, I think is
My
what they call
understanding is they
it?
own all of the static displays, so.
They call it a museum piece, so they pick what we do. But
Can and cannot do.
it's a procedure, it's not, we can figure it out.
We can figure it
Well,
out.
sorry, you're saying demo basically the front office to the library, demo that section, like the old band halls, ceramics, art,
You could,
we could.
And that's what we tried to do last time, and
but just not pull it as high, but pull it further out. Like,
Go
fine,
this way.
'cause you're not leaving the bomber plane, so you have more room.
You could still go wider. You could still go wider at the front. I mean, it just,
Yeah.
it touches, it kind of connects the gym to the building to
You can make
Dunbar.
it
to-
deeper.
But
We
do-
talked about having that single entrance, even the entrance to Dunbar and the gym, and you walk in a single entrance and then you go. We talked about that for security reasons. Is that, did that go away?
it does put all your guests in your high school.
Puts all of our what?
All your guests
Walk through the school.
walk through your school. So that's just something to think about.
That's not good.
No.
But
It's
wait,
not.
why would they walk through? They
They're
would just,
in part of, because they can go straight into your school, they go right, they go left.
can you not put doors that lock straight to the school? That's a question.
I
No?
mean,
They don't love it.
How how are schools?
Yes, that's the word. We
Yeah.
need a lobby, a
Yes,
vestibule.
yes. Is that what you were thinking?
Yes. So there'd be doors that lock to go to the gym, there'd be doors that lock to go to Dunbar, there'd be doors that lock to go to the high school.
Okay, I just don't, I think I didn't know what you were asking, but like all our campuses now, is you have a waiting area or where the office buzz you in. We
Right.
control it. It's not where they can just come in and go where they want to go.
Right. But then you would be controlling, if there's a performance in Dunbar, you're controlling who comes in. If there's a game, you're still because everything else is locked. And they come through our security system and you're controlling where they go.
It makes the security system
Really
easier. Like,
effective.
we're talking now about maybe moving over to Dunbar if we want to, or move it here, but if, yes, you have
Yeah, it's
a
stationary.
central terminal.
So so what you're saying is one central location that goes to Dunbar or goes to the gym, Is that what you're saying?
Or goes into the main
I need a
building?
whiteboard. It's just, it's like a,
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah, that's,
it's like a,
I got you. Here.
well, it's what we talked about, and it made complete sense to me.
You need, that's really big.
Okay.
While she's drawing, can I ask a question? Josh,
Yes, ma'am.
Dunbar's off that way,
If
the gym's off that way.
you push back and demolish part of that building, we're adding square footage, correct? Because we are taking down.
We're taking down square footage we already have.
And so that's square footage we were gonna use.
There's a little bit of redundancy there in what our ask would be, meaning that we're demoing some pieces, and then we gotta build it back.
Does it not have to be fixed to begin with?
Not like that much.
It's a much more minor scale than like starting over and going.
But it is in the plan to be.
Not, just like, make sure the roof isn't leaking.
Yeah.
So basically the void between where the magenta color is, the pink color is in the existing school, that void right there, if you filled that void and didn't have a big courtyard,
Yep.
right?
You can build
Combine
that.
everything there, like, I
To
don't
TV.
necessarily see the need for a big courtyard.
To the other TV that's not showing it, maybe?
Okay, just hang it, okay, does this make sense?
Okay, yeah,
Let me see.
Jim Dunbar.
I do, yeah, I think I can sketch that option.
Oh, then, so basically you have, okay, so you can't access any of the school.
No, everybody's.
You just got a big vestibule that stretches from Dunbar to the gym, basically what you're doing.
And only the doors that are supposed to be unlocked are unlocked.
Welcome to Mountain Home High School, Dunbar's this way, Jim's this way, school entrance.
Room for art displays, Starbucks.
Yeah. I mean,
All our football championship trophies.
Trophies. Your state championship pictures.
They know where they need to go. and they
It's a
can't-
really long vestibule.
Yeah.
It's a
So this is a very
vestibule.
crude sketch of your sketch, but what you're kind of suggesting is that, there's an entrance piece, and then there's a connection that goes to Dunbar and a connection that goes to the gym. So you have your lobby, let's hypothetically, some sort of lobby space. And then you have,
Your main
i.e.,
entrance.
the campus high school. So this is not too dissimilar than our previous
was
effort.
before.
The difference is that you've got an enclosed space going across from entrance to entrance, so you're building out square footage. Some of the downside, or one way to look at it is, this could, if we wanna keep costs down and you go 2 stories, I think there's more square footage needs that we would have to come in and say, oh, there might be more supplemental building that is needed, because I think you're gonna,
It's not enough.
it depends on where you wanna put all that square footage. Right now, that box doesn't quite represent as much as I think we need. So we might have to look at it and say, okay, well, let's go down that road. Well, what if the cafeteria was over here? Cafeteria's over here, high school is here. And you change that, because the cafeteria still needs to be accounted in this square footage.
So that's just not quite enough.
Pardon?
It's more expensive.
It just starts to raise the level of cost. You've got elevators, you've got stair cores, and so there is an uptick in cost as you go to 3.
But you're still not going, can you not go white, cause that's not gonna be there? And I know we gotta phase it in, but you can leave,
But you can't.
I am leaving the library.
Build until it's demolished, until it's.
so that whole thing, you can't.
We can't
you
just,
leave.
I suggested, my idea was, okay,
Yeah.
just demo everything but the cafeteria and the gym, and
Well,
then
that's
we'll
what I'm
work through
trying to
that.
do. You
Can't do that because of how it's tied together, is what I was told.
The way the roof is in.
Okay, that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that?
Yep.
Can't take part of it. I'm not, my suggestion, just from things I heard over the last time this group worked on this, any demolition of good space was not well received.
Right. Well, even if you could demo part of it, your kids would be wearing hard hats to go eat lunch.
They would love that. They would think that was fun.
So that road doesn't make any sense without the big top there. So when you think about the road, I don't put a lot of consideration into keeping that road there. We're already talking about putting up gates, preventing any through traffic.
The through road.
Yeah.
Around the west side. That road makes no sense without the big top there.
You can take care of that.
So, I mean, hey, the current courtyard void, I don't know how many square foot's there. Is there any space for maybe a cafeteria that now is gonna connect
Yeah,
the
that's
library and those wings where we have kids aren't walking through the rain or whatever? Can you, that void where the current courtyard is,
You know, if I had
be
to,
used, and that way we're not tearing down any existing space. And we're actually making the campus a little more compact, which is gonna make it a little bit more secure as well too.
and I think the cafeteria size is roughly what this little box is right now. I think that's roughly the size of what our future cafeteria looks like. So to give you an idea, right now, our cafeteria and kitchen is kind of all of this space. And so it's kind of an apples to, oranges size of what, just to be thinking about, how big is the cafeteria gonna be?
And how big is the cafeteria for 4 grade levels?
So you'd probably move up to closer to 15,000 square foot. And I think you're operating right now at 11,000 square foot. So good question.
So could anything go in that current, I think, Mr. Booth, can you show him the area you're talking about for the courtyard?
Yeah, the current courtyard space right here, this void.
What could you do there? Anything?
And, I mean, this road, you don't even have to think about
Yeah.
putting stuff across this road.
It's
I
gone.
mean, you can put buildings almost adjoining.
Mm-hmm.
That road doesn't make sense. Like, you
Yeah,
don't need that road.
pretend that goes away
It goes
altogether.
away.
Unless your cafeteria's there and then you
Well,
gotta have
and
it
then you
for.
need to have deliveries.
Deliveries, but that's all.
The delivery road into the backside of the cafeteria perhaps.
Where do you bring your buses in now?
Well, that I don't know yet.
So are you suggesting adding everything on there, or have it still come in the front?
I think this model, as he's suggesting, would
Okay.
still have a major piece in the front. It just, are we missing opportunities with these spaces in
Right.
between? One thing I would say is sometimes that space in between gets really hard. You got existing foundations, canopies, things
And you're
at
digging
different
next to
levels.
it, yeah.
I think a contractor might say, well, that's not ideal. I want a place to lay down. I need a place to move equipment. And I'm not saying that every little void can't be built out. I do think there's times that is appropriate. I just know from my side of the table, they want as much space and ease as they can make it, because it'll help time, safety. And with a campus that is currently operating the way yours is, where we know students are going, all the way across all the time, they're using all of these avenues. They're gonna want to, I don't wanna put words in their mouths, but they're gonna want as easy as possible and safe as possible so that they're not interrupting your day-to-day, so,
If we could take 1 second.
yeah.
For the audience that's watching this live, I know you cannot see anything that he's writing, but we are going to work on that before our next work session. And I just wanted to apologize because I've gotten a couple of messages like, hey, we can't see anything. And I thought, oh,
So this PowerPoint is attached to the agenda?
yes,
So-
well,
but I know we can't see the
he showed,
drawings, but.
So what I can do, I've been screenshotting as we go.
Okay.
And what I can do is resend this to you
Great,
with an
thank you.
exhibit showing those screenshots.
and we will post that on our,
We'll post it on the facilities page of our website and
To the agenda that.
to the
Yes.
agenda.
There you go.
Mary Beth, where do our buses unload in the mornings and pick up in the afternoon?
The cafeteria, where this little bridge is over here?
Yes?
Right there.
Okay.
No, not the road, it just goes straight through.
And then they go up to the junior high.
I think like but it's.
So they come in the cafeteria door?
They
Yes.
come in that,
And then they,
right there.
okay,
That's where morning and afternoon,
okay.
and then they drive straight up to junior high.
So we're looking at option one and trying to make that peg fit. Should we talk about option two real quick? I mean, hey, assuming that road is not needed, there is an elevation, there's an increase in elevation as you cross the road into that field a little bit. But if you were to use option two space and tuck it up nice and tight to maybe not that far off, but tuck it in real close to the library, it's not really expanding the campus that far. Certainly if you think of the big top being gone, being maybe parking up there, buses, bus turnaround up there perhaps. I mean, is it worth talking about option 2? Because we started talking about option 1 pretty quick. Option 2 is certainly simpler with us not trying to fit between the gym and the Dunbar and make everything work.
But it doesn't give you that central entrance like that was one of the main things we talked about.
Exactly.
That was one of the main features, is we wanted one central, one entrance.
Do you eliminate your extra entrances once the big top's down though? Because you would not have that entrance, you would have none of those doors at the front. The gym doors are locked.
So,
Mhm.
so how are
Dunbar
you
is
gonna-
locked.
If you park out in the student parking lot.
Long walk.
You would only have the main
How are you
office.
getting-
I don't know.
But it'd be the same walk. Basically, you'd have the same entryway. I mean, the plane doesn't move.
Main
But-
entrance.
Those kids are making that walk right now.
Big top could be
It could be parking.
That's parking. You only have one entrance in the front then. I mean, you've got Dunbar and you have the gym.
So is
but-
option 2, it's another building, it's separate,
On the
it's not
practice field.
connected?
The practice
Think of
field.
the practice field being.
Well, that's where I thought it was, so kids are gonna have to walk, I
And
just don't think that
that's
does what we want it to do.
How many feet of elevation change is that?
I wanna say there was like 7 feet
Yeah.
overall. I need to go back and double check that, but
That roadway's at least 6 feet
Yeah.
higher than
You
the
could-
floor.
Yeah.
up to-
There is
up
a
to the
walk
floor.
up from the big top.
Walk from the library to the
Is
second
it,
story and go down,
Oh, there you go.
where you go up, actually.
well,
Okay.
if it wasn't solid rock,
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I do get nervous, only, but rock's not bad if we can bear on it. It just depends on how the cut and fill and some of those things. And so, knowing that that could be an option, I mean, an easy answer would be to get a geotech, have them do some borings and just test that and look at the load bearing capabilities of it, if that was an option, for sure.
Where's the front door on option 2?
Same front door. You just give a little facelift.
Yep.
No,
You would still make this your front
Got it.
campus, and
Got it.
maybe, yeah, to your point, you re-look at how
Give it a
that
little-
looks, or what does that
You
feel
maybe
like?
update the sign, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't change the one thing I get nervous about, and admittedly, is when we displace parking, we've already paid for that once, and then it's not one of those things you get funding for, you don't really get funding for parking. And those are the silent killers to projects where, oh, we're building another parking lot, we're building other things. I get nervous about that because it's just an uptick. So there are some pros and cons about if we build it here, what does it look like to add parking?
You can't pull that any closer to the building, right? Like you can't go over that road.
Well, I mean, I think you bring up a good point. What if that road didn't exist?
Like, let's pretend like it didn't. Can we
Yeah.
pretend like it doesn't
You
exist?
could pull it a
That's
lot
the only way
closer.
I think that could help our safety feature, is if the road goes away.
So we do bus loading up.
You just figured that out. We get a.
Yeah, I
somebody-
mean, let's say
Yeah.
hypothetically, what if it just.
Go around the
it
back.
just-
That's
yeah,
what we
it
said
just
last time.
changed
And I was
altogether.
told there's engineers that can come and help you figure out
Yes.
how to switch
What
that.
if there was a front entrance right off of Rodeo here that came down the hill in the front of the there,
Yeah,
there's the
connected
front of
right
the
there.
campus.
There's already a little bit.
And now, you've got all this acreage for parking for your baseball, softball complex that has none. Then you've got, once the big top is gone,
More parking.
you've got an insane amount of parking
For
for
football.
football game, football
And
games.
basketball.
And then redesign this current front area for maybe bus loading, unloading, food service access. And then limit limit the access to the building. You'd still have all your Dunbar access, you'd still have all of your baseball, softball complex, the main gym, just basketball. If there was an entrance here.
If I'm a contractor, I like option 2 a lot because I can build it without interrupting you. I can get going on that, I can have lay down space, I have more space than I need. The con might be if we hit rock, or the con might be thinking about, the campus and, what are the adjacencies and elevation, how do we deal with those? So there might be some logistical things, but I think all of those can be overcome. 2 is nice because I don't have to shut down any of the school. I don't have to
Right.
worry about, I can do that before I have to disrupt you. And then I'm not wasting money on new parking lots that I already had paid for, or new, address that we already have. I don't have to move the airplane. There's just some of those things that are kind of collateral costs that kind of will interrupt the process.
The big problem
So,
with that is
Jason, what are
putting
you
3
talking about your
campuses of.
entrance? You're coming down, you talking about making a road down right through this bit right here?
And that would put 3 campuses of traffic
Yeah.
on Rodeo and West Road, which
That's the problem.
unless we can talk the state out of that section of the highway
Yeah.
to do something.
Talk about people having trouble finding a school, trying to find an entryway off of Rodeo and come through that, but, I mean, I like it. I like the idea of orienting the front either to the north or to the west, but.
I mean, the state did a traffic study at Rodeo
Down here.
West Road, right here at the, where they got just a stop sign
They were
and
looking
there's
at
not enough
Mhm.
traffic
To do a
to put
stoplight.
anything right there at that intersection. There wasn't enough traffic.
Only twice a day.
For a stoplight, there wasn't enough, I remember that.
Yeah.
40 minutes a day, 20 in the morning and 20 at night.
Yeah. But throughout the day, there wasn't enough traffic to put a light, any type of traffic control right there.
What about a roundabout?
That's Mountain Home, not Conway.
I
Well,
love
I
roundabouts.
don't know. Mount Home's getting his first one
I
now.
like.
We are?
Yes, the
Oh, Mr.
community
Fulton.
center will have the city's first roundabout.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's gonna be a test.
Who'd have thunk?
Okay, so on option 2, I'm still confused. That will be attached to the buildings, the current buildings.
It'd be really close. I'm not necessarily saying they're detached yet, but I think to your point, that road goes away and the new building gets basically integrated into it.
Because one of the big complaints that you hear is we've got all these little buildings, and so now we're gonna add one more. A big one,
Right, a
but we're
big
gonna
one,
add
yeah.
one more. We will, and have, to me, that, unless we can attach it and make it like an inversion of what your option 1 is, it's just the other, I don't know that it accomplishes the goals.
We want to be careful about our strategy of attaching, because when you start to attach, you group your square footages together, and
Okay.
it might trigger some code-related items like fire suppression. Then you have to go through and chase that forever. You have to have strategies around fire separation between building to
Okay.
building. This is the downfall in all renovations and
Yeah.
growth. So I think we just want to make sure we're sound in those decisions.
Okay.
So, obviously, the new building would have a fire suppression system. Anything over 12,000 square foot in new construction has to have a suppression system, so.
It'd be a long walk for current students, where the current student parking is over there, so you'd have to have parking on the north side.
But think about the kids that are already parking and they're walking to the back. They're walking right now. Mr. Engel, not as far to your room, but like to Miss Drury's room or to, from the parking lot, that's a long way.
Well,
Already.
and you said it earlier, long-term doesn't mean that there's not parking here
Right.
or here. And
Oh, yeah, you'd
therefore,
want it
some of
there.
that parking might actually find itself into, this is the new face of the
So
campus.
that's something I just thought of. That road has an easement on it.
Does it?
Which one?
One does not exist.
It's not even a road.
Fiber and.
Oh, you told me that.
No.
It's across, it goes across.
Fire hydrants are down,
Wow.
That's right, we talked about that.
so.
Huh.
So it has to exist.
It can't have a structure on it. Doesn't have to be a road.
I mean, I don't know if one of those things that can be moved or.
Skywalk.
And does that have something to do with the hospital?
It was in there.
Isn't
The
it-
reason I know it was in there is because.
It's significant
Yalcott
fiber.
came and popped it and then ran it down to the, nursing home.
So it's pretty significant fiber, it's not,
It's not one of ours, it's a.
no,
I
it's the
think-
real deal.
I think there's fire,
I think it's to do with the hospital.
extinguishers on it too.
And that might be one of the strategies they've had to be able to provide aerial apparatus around the campus.
Okay.
For the
Oh,
big
there might
topics.
be hydrants and stuff.
Well,
Goodness.
And like I said, I didn't tonight have any anticipation that we'd come away with a full-on plan. I think, we'd be really good. But I think that's works really well is we're kind of talking about options.
Right.
And as we go back and test these options, we can start to narrow down, you know, what's feasible, what's not feasible. We'll give you some more pros and cons. What I like is that, from what I understand, obviously the existing gymnasium and the library are sacred. We need to consider those more sacred pieces of the puzzle. What's probably not sacred is quite location yet. It could be either or if we can solve some of these traffic flow, pedestrian, and security concerns. I like that we're open to options. I think that really helps us understand kind of where your head's at. I think what we've also established is that the entry to Dunbar into the gym are very important. We got to solve how we deal with that from a, you know, what does the public come in? Where do they go? What does that mean? Those kinds of things.
Lots of flow.
It's a lot.
Is it a preference to leave space that is still considered not under the big top? Like, at least still standing, maybe a little touch up, but leave it? I'm talking about where the main offices are, et cetera.
If it's functional space, I think we need to the max extent preserve
Okay.
it, right?
I mean, I don't, does everybody agree with that?
So with that covers from where the art class
That's all still.
and the language
yes.
arts,
Yes,
that,
ma'am.
and then you come down.
Teachers lounge,
Okay.
admin offices,
Yeah, none of that's under the big.
none of that's
Kind
under
of
the
that
top.
little L shape is what we're talking about.
Right.
I
Art
think
rooms
with
are-
a little love in that space
I do too.
can stay standing and just get
Mhm.
renovated.
And when we say renovated, I'm not, I mean,
No, like
just
Not
updated,
reinventing,
reinvented.
renovated.
I mean, we do have some remodel, a little remodel, but not
Yeah, but, you know, getting it.
spruced up.
I know we were
that's
gonna
what-
hear from
Yes.
teachers and stuff. Can we ask if they have?
Yes, please. We'll take some input.
We're up here spitballing. Do y'all are gonna be the ones in the space. Do y'all have any ideas on what we've been saying and thoughts on option one, option two? Making it fit around where the plane is and the existing courtyard, or, I mean, do y'all have any input for us? You hearing things you like or don't like? Oh, that's not gonna work, but.
You're not gonna get fired.
It's all good.
Speak now. Come on, lay it on us. Not tonight, anyway.
I think just compactness,
Compact,
whatever we can do to
tighten it.
compact and be efficient with our space. We were talking, we don't need that courtyard to be that big with the bomber in it. I mean, if that space can be utilized to,
Right.
so even if it's just assist with parking, then it's worth
I'll
using that
move it.
space for something.
Do you prefer the front or the back? Which I think the back is gonna, I think we've heard some things in the back that may be a no-go, but.
I mean, we talked about, you're probably gonna hit the same kind of ground in the front as you're gonna hit in the back, cause it, I mean, it is Arkansas. Right? So we're probably gonna find rock on either side.
And I don't know what
But-
you can do with an easement. I don't,
Yeah, what I'll probably end up doing is doing some more research onto this road and what we can and can't get away with. I need to understand when it was built, what was installed, you know, what was their approach, to that.
And if it could be rerouted.
I know we're not looking visually, but my idea, like, even if we took our building and made it sort of like the circle, like if you, using her idea, pulling it further out if we used option one, and making it like the front kind of circular, not like straight lines, like it, I mean, and maybe that's just how the concept is drawn.
Yeah, it's, right now, it's just a kind of a bubble diagram.
But you
yeah.
could use this design and
Mhm.
making it 2 stories, but still be able to pull it out and connect
Gotcha.
and using that front more. And if we're keeping the fine arts and admin building. I mean, I know connecting it is hard, but our kids have to walk in the rain. Like, if there's a way that we can connect some of these buildings, that they're not in the weather and coming in drenched, it would be amazing.
So instead of squaring it off, Maybe, and I know Mr. Sheedy can't really see it there, almost using the existing walkway, here's that front of that vestibule, have a curved front to it. Basically, yeah, hey, you can go to the gym, you can go here, here's central offices, and then you
Yeah,
go
it's
into
like
the
a
rest of the
circle,
school.
it's almost
I mean, like,
circle-wise.
that line could almost define that front of the building.
Come out instead of going back, come project out to the front instead of going.
Correct, you use
Yeah.
that space to the east side of front office
Mhm.
and have maybe that circular front basically that sits over the same footprint of where the circle is right now.
You'd still have to move the plane, but
You'd still have
that's
to move
just,
the
we're
plane.
gonna have to deal with that, yeah.
Is that enough?
But
Is that a big enough footprint, Josh?
Well, the one thing I'm having a hard time visualizing is that we've got, in the diagram that's on your screen, we still have a lot of building to make up in this. Meaning that, yes, that's a circulation piece, and that could be an entry along this edge. But that's a lot of square footage that's gonna kinda hurt you, because it's not classroom space, it's a circulation corridor. It connects, and there's value to it, don't get me wrong. It's just getting that right, figuring out how big that is, and then coming up with the roughly 80,000 square foot of academic space that is needed.
Mhm.
I'm trying to visualize, what does that really look like? Is this all now academic space? The form is just kind of following, things that are adjacent, right? The football field or the adjacent, parallel to.
you weren't talking about it that far to the east, were you, Ms. Molly? You were thinking
Well,
it tucked in more.
Let me
into
add,
that
why can't you,
space.
okay, can you kind of erase that?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's not,
Watch this, yeah. it's super
look at, that's right there, it's amazing to watch. Okay, come from the corner, the front corner of the gym.
Okay, so this is our entry currently.
Yeah,
to the
go,
gym.
well, no, go all the way to the front corner, that's the
This one?
middle, right there, go right there. Cut across, come toward Dunbar, no, not there.
Right here?
Come to the other corner of Dunbar,
Oh, you're saying
Far
this.
back.
right there.
Uh-huh.
Could you do, how would that fill up and make our space?
So I think that square footage is very, very similar to what we would need. The then now question becomes, how do we want to enter into the facility? And that might mean something, let me change colors here, that, you're coming into the facility and then you still have connections, so you're staying indoors, you're staying,
So you still can't make a little hallway vestibule, it doesn't have to be huge.
I'm thinking that's maybe here, or that can be, wherever
I was
that
going all the way across and you actually enter,
Just like here, if you come in this door, we've got a door
Mhm.
straight into the high school, a door to the left to Dunbar, and a door to the right to.
yeah, you still do that same entrance, you just do it out here.
But you're saying there's,
Oh, I think I now I'm reading.
Yes,
You're saying
there,
this
yes.
is the corridor.
Then you come in and then you
Yeah,
got all
okay.
that space cleared, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm following you now a little bit more, because I've just been traditionally thinking that's my entry point and that's my entry. I do know now.
But now you pull it completely all out,
Mhm.
and that compacts it like the teachers were
Mhm.
asking, that definitely makes, and it fills it in, we just have to move the plane.
I gotcha.
but do you have to remodel your entrances?
We would have to, yeah, and specifically on Dunbar, because this so much is front of house, and then I think if I recall, the seating's like this, and this is
Yes.
stage. You would have to really think about how do we operate that, or how does that facility work?
On the gym side, your entrance, I believe, is into your bathrooms
Right.
and to a stairwell.
Mhm.
Is that right?
That's what I recall, it's in this corner.
Yeah.
I am trying to also put my thought would be that, yeah, you could do corridor around each of it, and you really connect all of it.
That's, yeah.
It just turns into a lot of circulation space.
Yeah.
Not saying it's wrong, it just.
I know, it just, it
efficiency
kind
might
of
be
solves
challenging.
multiple buildings.
Mm-hmm.
It still gives you, and it gives you that central access, I guess that's become my mantra here, is this
I like it.
one
Yeah.
access point.
Well, and I do think that is very important, because you have so much public going to those two programs. So.
What you're looking at.
That was kind of the part of the reasoning for the original design and removing those structures.
Was it? Yeah.
Because
How do I get into them in number one right now? How do I get into Dunbar and how do I get into the gym? I have to go
Stays.
into the building and then it's just separate, there's like a.
They're not
walkway.
connected.
Yeah, and it, I mean,
It's not connected.
financially, I don't think you're moving the entrance of Dunbar. I don't think,
Yeah, that's sad.
you might be able to move the entrance of the gymnasium to the back, but in all reality, you're probably not moving either of those entrances.
I think what I had in my head, it really wasn't that hard. It's
There's not enough square footage.
I think
not-
it's
I don't
the
think there's
space. I
enough
don't think there's
square
enough
footage
space where
to
you're thinking.
accommodate.
The building.
Okay, because it would have to take the lobbies, is what you're saying. Okay,
You don't have enough space.
so you still couldn't complete, requirements, they're tough.
So
Okay,
the current-
so you,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but you'd go, so you have that front, and if you went all the way, you filled up that whole space with building, you
can
can't
just
do
draw
that?
A thick line from the, say, the front door of the gymnasium, right where the front entrance is, and straight down to the entrance
To Dunbar.
to Dunbar. If that was the front of your building,
That doesn't give us enough square
There's
footage.
not-
It doesn't.
everything
Right.
behind it would have to
So I
go.
was just trying to scoot it up, and I guess I've got too many hallways.
So if you scoot
It's a
it up,
problem.
now you come in the front and you'd have a hallway all the way around your building. At the end of the day.
But bookshelves.
Be a lot of room for displaying.
Well,
state
All the
championships and
trophies,
$5.
yes, absolutely, yes.
But I'll kind of go down this road for a minute. I mean, you're not wrong in the idea that whatever this program on this side of the corridor, like if this is your front of your campus now, and we know we have to renovate some of this.
Right.
And we start to stack. Yes, this kind of blurs the line of where we were a few years ago. But this becomes your entrance and your vestibule or your lobby, and then your circulation corridor can take you you go down that hall and it's to the gym, and you go down this hall and it's to Dunbar. This program becomes question mark. What is that? Is that the new cafeteria, the front office? Yeah, it could be ways to solve some of that. Nothing says that the cafeteria has to have the same stereotype as it is. Right now, it's in the back of campus and we don't celebrate it. The cafeteria could be a great community space. So that could change, and yeah, your loading and unloading could be over here, and we can beautify the campus and do things where you don't feel like you're looking at the back of that. But like that could be a way to solve the cafeteria in the circulation, and then our academic space is trying to be here. There's some collateral damage of renovation and that, but you're not far off from thinking that could be an option that could be explored. And then it stays a tight, compact campus.
And I was gonna ask even just where the front office is, that eastern part of the L on the Fine Arts Building, is there any classroom space there where your office is, Mr. Goodman's office is, the front, I mean, that eastern rectangle, the L part, there's nothing but office space there, is that right? Admin space?
There's classrooms.
There's a few classrooms.
In that little square off on the east, there is a classroom there? They're up here,
No, sir.
This is
Yeah,
nothing but
No, sir,
admin
there's
space?
classrooms.
There's
There are
classrooms
classrooms?
Yes, sir.
behind
Okay.
Ms. Russell's office.
Back here, or back
Right
here?
Right here,
Okay.
yeah. And a lounge, teacher's lounge,
Hmm.
and SRO. No,
You know,
you
if-
moved him. Did you move the SRO?
Just
There's
exploring
two
all
or
the
three
options,
classrooms on
if
that
that went
wall.
away, right, hey, we're gonna put a new admin space.
There's
Sorry, here you go.
Yeah.
classroom space.
Okay, that's right,
And Mr. Booth, you have a map too you can look at, take home with you to look at.
okay.
That'll help you kind of see what's actually there as far as classrooms.
And I would say that in that model that we painted that picture a minute ago, you would have to go vertical to accomplish what you want from a square footage standpoint. I would be very apprehensive of trying to add vertical square footage over existing. You really want to wipe that slate and go, you don't want to try to penetrate it and stack above
Or
it.
what I was thinking is if,
Like a big
if
top.
this
Just that
section went
part.
away, right?
Just that part.
Yeah, I could see putting admin in temporary buildings
Oh.
while we build this, so you could get rid of, if you were to get rid of this space, you may lose, there's a lounge, a teacher?
No, there's
a-
a couple classrooms.
There's two classrooms, okay. But now we have a nice square
Mhm.
area to work with. without wasting this space, because it gets really tight with this, right, to try to work in this space. But if you get rid of this one limited amount, my understanding there's water leakage and smells like mold and that kind of stuff. We're gonna have to do
It's
work on this
rough.
space anyway. If this
Oh, that
minimal
makes
amount were to
sense.
go away, it makes this a lot easier to build in, and you can even use this space up here. True, false? Yes, no?
There's things here that I think,
Admin could sit in temporary trailers during the construction process.
FEMA
We're not-
trailers?
We're not disrupting classrooms.
Well, I like
Did
if
I
that
say that?
becomes the cafeteria or an activity room. If that becomes a cafeteria, then there are events where it's just, the Mountain Home Education Foundation might do some fundraisers and you would just have an entrance right there. I mean, that's pretty cool.
And
Is
you know how
that-
challenging it was to get people to move the old cafeteria
Mhm.
the last time around? We couldn't explain it enough to get
Well,
people there.
you could use, I'm thinking about the Athletic Hall of Honor. I mean, there are things that are held in the cafeteria now would be up front and center, could really be
Well,
a user-friendly.
There's something to be said about having, let me say, your more public spaces up front. That's the original
Absolutely.
design had cafeteria, library, front and
Still
center.
that.
Yes.
So that when they did come in, those public spaces
Those
were
are-
made public very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And then
And there's nothing to say that center section has to be enclosed and circulated air conditioned space, right? It could be covered walkway. But we still have a central entrance where we could set up metal detectors if that's what we wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
it's like that could be your lobby.
I like that.
Okay, but it does mean taking down space, and that's where everybody's gotta get
We have one of those.
behind that. We have a plan that
No, I mean,
you have a,
we have, Josh, remember, we have an old plan library, doesn't go down.
We do. We do.
Takes down that office, because that was one of the few classrooms.
so that was a plan at one point?
It was, and Josh helped me because it was years ago.
Yeah.
The thought was is that when you went back there and you connected the roofs and did the remodel of the library to make it attached, not only did it have a horrible hallway for the students, but it was either cheaper or around the same price to just demolish it. And that's how we got there.
Yeah. Yeah, the hard part was, it was just easier to wipe the slate clean than try to deal with renovation, because we needed a stack no matter what. The library, at the time, the hard part about the library was, in our history of the campus, it wasn't built that long ago, but it's small. And it was kind of occupying space that it was needed for the cafeteria loading and unloading. So it didn't make sense to try to repurpose it in the previous model. So there were some challenges of when we weighed it out, let alone the vertical challenges of grade. And so, in trying to think through that and remember kind of our history of it, that's just kind of where that came from. It was really about, like, is the juice worth the squeeze? If we do this, what's sacred about the library? The new library might need to be bigger, and it wants to be in the front of the building, versus that current library was kind of in the back. It's always kind of been in the back. And there's a little bit of frustration, I think, that, the library is usually the first space you see when you walk in. And that's why in our old model, we had it kind of front and center, where you walk in, you'd have admin to the right, library to the left, and then cafeteria in that public space, and then academic space. So this option is interesting to start to think about and explore. What I wouldn't want is, we want to try to make it as efficient as possible. That's a lot of ground from entrance to Dunbar in the gym to make up. So we want to figure out how to do that in a space that, if you're going to a game, are you wanting your public to go through that lobby and that long corridor? It's easy to go into Dunbar, because that might be, you turn in and go to the left pretty easily. The gym's kind of a challenge, and I'm not against still exploring some thoughts behind Mr. Booth's rethinking the gym entrance could be to the north. In the future, with the circus tent gone, and that could turn into more public parking, I still think there could be some way that the gym could still have a prominent entry to the north. Doesn't mean the whole campus has a prominent entry, but the gym might need that. You could really kind of combine the two thoughts and make it work. So.
That was kind of my original thought, was that if if the north side is the main entrance, you've got the library right at the front. If this were to become cafeteria space, you build into here, you've still got central office, library, cafeteria right to the front. And now you're building into the rest of this space for
Yeah.
the back side.
Yeah.
So once again, we're right kind of back to where we.
Well, and that's how these things go.
And but that goes back to
Sure.
Eddie, telling
Yeah.
us about traffic.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, guys, that is a deal.
It is, and it's.
And if you're at Hackler, it is a deal.
Yeah.
And up at this office, it is a deal.
Okay.
We've had city police out there, we've had I don't even know, this year they brought multiple police officers. It's kind of a deal.
It's a problem.
So,
And I just foresee it being a.
but if the
bigger problem
gym's
if
just
that was-
open, that door, I mean, that's kind of cool. You have the parking and you go right into the gym just for the public for games. Games.
Now, that'd be
Students
different.
during the day still come through this way.
Yeah.
They can do it. You know?
Your parent drop-off would be at the back, is that what you're thinking?
Because,
Because your
Why's
front
that?
entrance, well, you're saying your front's on your north side.
no, I'm saying the front still stays where it is. This,
On the
this
east side.
Are you?
front. You do have a second entrance for basketball games.
Oh, that's not an
Only.
issue.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
an issue.
That makes perfect sense. We just have a pretty backside. You're gonna have to do something to the, you
Well,
said anyway, when you
yeah,
tear it down.
Exactly, this facade's gonna
So-
have to be addressed,
Mhm.
and so, to your point, this is new facade, that potentially could be new facade. And you're dressing that up, and it doesn't mean that it would look bad, like, that could be storefront. The reason that storefront would be north-facing glass, and it's indirect lighting, and you could make that look great looking into a cafeteria over here, or academic space, so. Like, I'm confident that we can get the architecture to work out. If we got the adjacencies and the square footages, yeah, I mean, I like the challenge.
I kind of like how that's, makes it.
Oh, it's a
I like
challenge.
It is that.
Mhm.
Is that enough space, that footprint?
I will need to start testing it as I start to lay out these 24 classrooms and labs and start to,
I think it's a few more than 24.
yeah,
When
I
we
think it's
recount
closer
it.
to
Yeah,
32, right?
32.
So,
When I counted, I'm at 31, but some of those are laps,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so I think as I get, these things added in here and start to look at where they would fit, one of the only reasons I like that the cafeteria might be over here is just that loading and unloading. I want to limit how much traffic flow is in here from a big box truck standpoint.
Mhm.
What does that mean? And, are they paying attention? When's deliveries happening? What does sounds do when they back up? Smells, if your prevailing winds are coming from the west, I kind of don't want that to blow into the rest of the campus. I want to think about, we all have been behind a cafeteria, it smells like soured milk at times, and so there's just things that go along with it.
So with that plan, we would need new main offices and new counseling spaces, counselors' offices.
And that could find itself like right there, that, if this is your kind of,
And
if that's an entrance, or you could find yourself, building that out to, if that's your entrance.
Because if we take that part down, that's where I was thinking counselors
Yeah.
and career coaches, so that would need. And Ms. Russell's your SRO, did you move him to the back, or is he up there right now?
He's in the back, he's in the big hall.
Okay, so SRO, there's some offices we need to talk about. Because that does add a little bit with the counseling center.
And that's important.
Yes, absolutely.
I think we kind of have an option under option 1 that is interesting, and I think can morph into a functional piece. I think under option 2, if we can learn if that road has easements, there could be an option 2.
Mhm.
So I think my challenge would be go back and test both of them a little bit, come back with some layouts, and I think I've got enough of your pros and cons of what is of value that we can test it, for sure.
Is there anything that was not expressed as far as a need or want?
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I will tell you, I have a strong feeling, I'm just gonna tell you, I have a strong feeling about a nice special education space. That's a need to me.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely ground floor.
That's been, I think it's important, and right now, we don't have a very good space.
And won't it require a safe room?
Yes, all of this is
Yeah.
new construction after IBC 2018 requires safe areas within the building. And so it'll be based on your occupant load. So we'll start to study the 32 classrooms at 30 students per plus faculty. You know, if it's 1,200 people, you know, what does that capacity look like? And then design around that.
Does that
I
gym
don't want to call it
count?
FEMA because FEMA is a proprietary, but it is a safe area.
Does that gym, that activity gym, does that count as far as number of people?
It does. It's killing me on another project right now because I can argue that you'll never have the two things occupied. Like you
Because
will
this
never
wouldn't
have
even
the
have
public
bleachers.
and
Like,
what's that?
this gym
Yeah.
wouldn't even have bleachers.
Well, and that might help because if you're not allowing people to sit in there in that capacity and it's used for
PE.
practice only, PE, archery, it carries a different occupant load.
Okay, so that will help.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
assembly, it would be specific, yeah. When it's assembly occupant load, it triggers.
Goes up.
I know
Yeah.
some
Bigger.
smaller schools that have gotten.
Yeah.
But it
big
can be
spot.
integrated into your
100%.
Big
classrooms.
yes.
That's right.
So
Bathrooms.
Right now,
we
I'm
don't
doing
know it's
the-
a safe room until
That's
we
right.
know it's a safe room.
Right now, I've designed and we're under construction with a 7th and 8th grade building at White County Central, which is kind of by Judsonia north of Searcy. And 3 or 4 of the classrooms are all safe area. So it's like choir room, GT room. The requirements are sink, restroom. They have a harder lid, reinforced walls. In this case, we did them out of CMU block and reinforced them, and then have steel beams going across with a thickened deck. So you can integrate that into it, absolutely.
You've got a lot of work ahead of you. We should probably maybe try to,
That's okay.
Teachers, any needs?
yes, any more needs from our teachers. I'd love to hear any more that you might have.
I would argue that I think we have work to do as well too.
Yes, yes.
If history is any teacher, right, we can come up with a fantastic plan, but if we can't get the community behind it and say, this is what we want to spend our tax dollars on, and this is the plan that we want to invest in, we're wasting our time and our money, right? So I'm going to put out there, and I'm going to try to talk to as many people as we can and say, what can we get behind? I think we've hit the major wickets, which is the needs and reducing the wants, or putting the wants off to a different campus, some other unused spaces, keep the existing spaces. But, you know, I would encourage us all, teachers and everybody, let's talk to the stakeholders, let's talk to our constituents and say, hey, what can you get behind? This is still 2.5 years away before the ask. And
So,
but
Ms.
if-
Dewey, you mentioned the facilities page. What's that?
On our website.
Uh-huh.
And it was actually a suggestion, I don't remember, somebody suggested that, to have a web, on our webpage,
Mhm.
you can go to the facilities section, and we can't bring it up, I guess, right now, but, we have the facilities master plan, we've got each of the buildings laid out.
The facilities reports from the last, like I started.
Every
with
board,
January,
we did that,
so
we
it's
just
been
added
different.
those. So every board meeting, those are directly linked. And then we'll go ahead and add the notes from tonight.
So that's a good source for true information.
There it is.
Can there be a comment or
So we just.
question?
We can do a form.
A form would be great, if
That'd
we
be
can do a
great.
comment or a
Leave your
question
input
form.
here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I've been watching, Gentry School District is currently in a millage campaign, and they did a splash page where it directed like these meeting minutes or the Q&As or.
Yeah.
And it's looks fairly easy for them. They're able to monitor it, what's frequent questions, and I feel like that's probably one of those things that is worth, considering as we evolve this discussion, how do they interact? How can they interact anonymously? How do they interact specifically?
Right.
And this is a much better way than on social media. I mean, we all love social media, but that's not where you
It'll
hash
still be
out
there.
a plan. So visit our facilities page and get the true information.
Mountain
That's where
Home
the
Public
truth lies,
Schools.
and that's factual.
Also, I want to show on the school board page, school board members page, we did add, one of the reasons that the emails are not as easy to find is because of some cybersecurity. We were asked basically to take them down. However, we added, there's a tab. So each board member, you can contact, we added that this week. It will go to to the web, the contact, it goes to Ms. Crawford. She will then be able to send it out, and this was considered safe by our technology department.
That's good.
For right now. Maybe adding, I believe there may be a bill out there right now to add at least the board members' direct emails soon, but the technology department did ask us to do it
So
this way for
putting
now.
our mhbombers.com email address out there is a cyber concern?
Cyber
was.
concern.
Lots of phishing.
It's some
and-
phishing
Spam.
and some spam.
Yeah,
and-
like a lot.
So we're
this will
just
kind of
trying to be
filter
respectful
through
of that right now,
Sure, just
and
understand.
this will get information to you all.
Any further, anything? I would like to thank definitely you, Josh, for being here, and the teachers for taking a long night out. I appreciate your input. And I'd like to recognize Mr. Brad Butler, a candidate for school board. Thank you for taking your time to come here. Chris Fulton and Chris Knight. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you for the food. Roberto made those awesome
From junior high cafeteria.
junior high cafeteria. Those were really good chicken ranch buffalo something
Oh, good.
burritos. I'd like to take a couple home.
Really good.
But, anything else,
Thank y'all.
ma'am?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
for-
you.
Thank
Thanks for all
you.
your hard work.
Oh, absolutely. We're getting started. I'm enjoying it. You're gonna enjoy it. It's the dream sessions that kind of get and conjure up ideas, and so I appreciate everybody participating. It's
Thank
great.
you. Mr. Fulton?
When are y'all gonna have the first public
No.
invite for people to come in and talk to y'all about this?
Well, they're welcome at every board meeting. That's the first time.
The
but-
input part is hard for right now, because as you see, this took 2 hours, almost 3. So until we kind of get a little more ideas, meat to the bone, I think, I don't know, but
I would hope that if somebody was here, watched the live stream, found how to contact or how to get
Get
their
all the
idea
facts.
or their input to us, that it can be done just like that. You know, ask. We're all available, every one of us.
Mhm.
Well, I understand that, but I would like for people, especially who complained last time about how this went down,
Mhm.
to be in here. It should not just be one, I should not be representing the entirety of the public.
Please stress that we want input, right?
Oh, for sure.
Now's the
And
time.
anybody's welcome to always come to our meetings. I mean, speaking,
You know,
Yeah.
Ms. Dewey has walk-in every so
Mhm.
often. We've been going out
Every
to the
week.
community. We're making ourselves as available as we can make ourselves.
So please, encourage
Yes.
input, and I believe everybody here is encouraging input.
yes.
Absolutely.
I just wanna see personally, as a citizen, more people coming to these meetings and participating.
Not waiting till the end.
Not waiting until the end,
Mhm.
not sitting on Facebook, not typing on your little public websites that you can control. Come here, state what you want. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. But I should not be the only member of the public that is not a member of this organization or who has been hired to work for you guys sitting here. It's really embarrassing, I think, for me, for this community. We've had this debate, this is gonna be round 3 since I've lived in this community,
Mhm.
and I'm the only person that's attending this stuff.
One suggestion I would have, we experienced this at Valley Springs.
Mhm.
We had a kind of a low engagement with the public. And a person like yourself created a task force. And it started with 2 or 3, and then that spread and multiplied. So creating task force to just, voices of Mountain Home, it can be called whatever you want. I find that momentum, and then it helps give a concentrated voice to that too. It's not just chaos, who comes, who doesn't. So it might be a way to suggest, finding a small task force, like a task force is being created. Feel free to engage. you have to be careful what you invite. Of course, like, it gets a little overwhelming, but what we found in our second ask, when we asked for a millage campaign, is that voice was able to control it. They were able to help filter it. They were an advocate, not only for the project, but for like the right information that was being spread. We also found that it was retired teachers that really said, hey, I want to raise my hand and re-engage. And so sometimes it might require some of that work, but if there's a little bit of start, you might find that that could help.
Well, I know the groups will form again.
Oh, yeah, they're forming.
But I'm asking, I am begging the public to get in here and participate. Don't sit on Facebook and do it.
As Mr. Josh was just talking, I was thinking about the Retired Teachers Association.
sir.
It's like, hey, can we engage with them? And
They were very
they're
supportive.
very
supportive.
Very
Yeah.
supportive and cooperative. Cooperative.
but starting now, 2.5
Right,
years,
right.
2 years, 9 months, as we're
Sure.
starting to make these decisions. So,
All right. Anything
My
else?
soapbox is up. I love you guys.
Well, we do thank you for being here as a representative of the public. And
Someone
being-
has to be here, 'cause, oh my gosh, if I wasn't here, y'all be meeting.
Oh, we would have all kinds of things. We would have a
I
heat
make
of-
a motion to adjourn.
Okay, adjourn. Thank you
Move on.
all, everybody.
Move on.
Thank you.